Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we're going to be going live talking about this Padres Royals series. Now, it was a good overall series. I think that the things that we wanted to see from this team in terms of a bounce back series, we got to see. And then Sunday was kind of spoiled by two specific pitchers in Sean Manaea and Josh Hader, who have basically been the exact same guys that have been struggling for quite some time now. So that was a little bit frustrating to watch today. And the offense, they were showing life. They were coming back consistently. Okay, decent lead in the first inning. Padres offense kind of claws back. Then Nabil Chrismack gets I think it was 3 runs charged against him. And they kind of extend the lead, and then the Padres start climbing back. And then finally, when Josh Hader ended up coming in later in the game, it just got out of hand. But overall for the series, I think the big thing was we got to see some offense finally. We got to see some home runs. We got to see, I felt like, just a better approach at the plate, a lot more aggressive. For the Padres. So overall, I think it's a very positive series. Now, it would have been fantastic to see a series sweep, but I think the Padres have a couple guys that are really causing almost all of their problems right now. Isaac, I think you feel the same way. So what are you feeling right now about after the series, though?
I wouldn't say confident. I still feel – I'd be lying if I said I didn't still feel a little discouraged. Just because you've blown a lot of games. You blew 2 to the Nationals, 2 to the Marlins. You got swept by the Guardians. So, of course, taking 2 of 3 in any series is fantastic. But you also kind of want to sweep the Royals because realistically, when we were talking about it earlier in the season, we were kind of like, September is somewhat of an easy schedule. Now looking at it, the Dodgers 9 times is not fun. The Cardinals now lead their division. They're a very good team. We typically struggle against the Cardinals anyway. The White Sox, I'm not sure how they're doing. They're doing a little better than I remember, though. And then you still got to play the Mariners. So, and the Giants a few times. So there's still a tough road ahead of us, kind of similar to last year where, there were a lot of playoff aspirations, playoff hopes, but it was a very long, tough road to get there. And ultimately, we didn't end up getting there. Even with the playoff format this year, we wouldn't have got there last year. But granted, you're kind of putting yourself in a position where you should succeed. Granted, Manaea doesn't exactly help. He is almost a guaranteed L. So this is what I'm thinking for that Manaea start against LA. Remember, he's slated to start on Saturday in LA against Tony Gonsolin. However, you absolutely cannot afford for that to happen. You can't do that. There's no way Bob Melvin says, all right, the way you've been throwing recently, I 100% expect you to go ball out in LA against Tony Gonsolin. Because last time in LA, he was out after, 2-3 innings? Bob Melvin didn't even want to let him go anymore. And Manaea was saying, please let me go so I can at least help the bullpen. And he said no. What should happen is Clevenger's throwing, what is it, tomorrow, I think? Or maybe the next day? Tomorrow? And then they have a day off after that Giants series. Clevenger should throw that Saturday instead of Manaea. That would, I believe, be on regular rest, and it should be good. Right? Yeah. Does that sound right?
Yeah, but Clev would probably throw Sunday then.
Or Sunday would be fine.
He would go Sunday and then Darvish.
Yeah, that works perfectly.
Yeah.
That works great also, for sure. Because Darvish is throwing the first game, and then it's Is
it Darvish then Musgrove?
It's supposed to be Darvish, Manaea, and then Clevenger. I don't know how it's all working right now, but one thing's for sure, you cannot afford to have Manaea going up against LA. So realistically, you kind of want to have, if you can, Darvish, Clevenger, Snell, Clevenger, whatever it is. That's realistically what you want. Of course, Musgrove in there doesn't hurt. You love having Musgrove in kind of almost any situation. He only allowed 2 earned runs yesterday, so it's not like he was struggling. But
dude, his struggles have been getting overblown. I think
so too. I think he's been fine.
Manaea's haven't. Obviously, Josh Hader's haven't.
Yeah.
I think there's been some guys where we've been talking about him. I think the Bill's struggles have actually been a little bit underrated. I think the Bill's been kind of bad for a little bit, honestly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't really think I like Musgrove against the Dodgers still. I still think that's fine to do that. Snell probably would be a little bit better just because he's been a lot he's been better lately. I think it was his last start. The start before wasn't that encouraging, but I don't know. Piggyback Benai with Reese Kinnear. You can't really take like if Hader. I don't know. It depends what they do with Hader because Hader does not seem like he can come into a game right now. And I think we're gonna have an episode on that tomorrow too. But like Hader looks so bad, so if they were to like send him down or something, then maybe Kinnear. But so everyone else in the bullpen is pitching so well. Besides, there's been like 3 guys in the staff right now that have been bad. For the past, did you see the stat like for the past however many games? And it totally got jacked up today, but this was after yesterday's game. The Padres like bullpen ERA had been like a 1.5 and it had been like a month or something like that.
They've been fantastic. And it's easy to like look over that just because Josh Hader's struggles have been emphatic and they've been emphasized amongst, especially as Padre fans, but even in the media, those struggles have been emphasized. So it's easy to forget that Tim Hill has been fantastic. Luis Garcia has been solid. Nick Martinez has easily been one of the best bullpen arms in all of baseball. So this bullpen is still really good. I don't know what's going to happen with Josh Hader. We're supposed to talk about that this upcoming week, so we don't really want to talk too much about it right now. We'd rather you guys go and watch that because that one will be more in depth. But just looking at it, you kind of don't want Josh Hader. You don't want Josh Hader up at all right now, which is very hard to say, but they're going to keep throwing him out there. So we just got to keep hoping for better, which it's very hard to hope right now. But
did you watch his outing today?
Oh, dude, no. I
watched it.
I'll tell you what I did. I watched Mania. And said, all right, you know what? I'm going to turn this off. I'm only going to watch them hit. And so I watched them hit mostly. And then I maybe watch an inning of somebody else pitching. But no, I want to hear about Hader, though.
Okay, so there's someone outside absolutely screaming right now. So if you guys can hear that, I'm sorry, but somebody's going ballistic outside right now. But Josh Hader comes out, right? There was a pitch, Isaac. I shit you not. He bounced it in the grass. Next pitch, way over Campy's head. Campy jumps up and catches it. And the bases are loaded because he had walked the previous guy. That, like, just that situation, I think, can paint the picture of how much of a disaster it was. It was absolutely horrible. Like, bro, at least when Mania's pitching, like, and I'm not trying to rip him too hard because, I mean, but he hasn't been good this year. He just hasn't been good, but, like, he's just throwing it down the middle every single time. Hader cannot even, like, he wasn't even close to the zone, dude. Like, it was all over the place. It was that bad. Like, it was one of, I was thinking about it, like, do you remember that inning earlier this year when Weathers pitched against the Cubs? I think it was the second inning.
Oh, he was getting rocked.
Like that particular half inning where you were like, dude, this is like one of the worst half innings of pitching I've ever seen, because it was like he would like bounce it, throw it over the catcher, or he'd throw it right down the middle of the plate. And it was like only those 3 spots for the whole inning, it felt like.
Yeah.
Hader's might have been as bad today or even worse. Like it was that level. And the thing is, it's not like we haven't seen these outings recently from Hader either. So like it's rough, man. I don't know. I think that you definitely can't really expect anything from him. I do not think that they're going to be able to throw him. Like you were saying that you think they're going to throw him out. I don't think they can. I think he's that bad right now. He looks completely broken. It is crazy that we're talking about Josh Hader like this. And it's also like one of those things too. He wasn't good before he got traded from the Brewers. And like we hadn't been locked in on him. Bro, if you're about to trade for a guy, like it's looking bad, dude. It's looking like a horrific trade.
It is. And it is nonetheless very discouraging because you really thought you were getting the best closer in baseball. You really came in thinking, all right, you might blow one game the rest of the year. But other than that, if we're going in with a 9th inning lead, we're winning. He's blown them all. I think maybe outside of one, he's blown them all. I just saw a comment, what can go wrong against the Giants? Everything. You can get swept. But realistically, I mean, you got Clevenger against Rodon. I kind of expect to lose that one. I'm not gonna lie.
Bro, this is messed up. Have you seen the lineup, the starting pitching lineup?
They're throwing Rodon and then Webb, and then Wood's not that good, but still, he had a really good outing against us last time.
No, Wood's not that good, but Wood against the Padres, you might as well throw Jacob deGrom out there, bro. Exactly. It's been that level.
Yeah, he is really good. So, I don't know. We should take 2. If we don't take 2, then I hit the panic button like last series. I will not against the Guardians. I had already hit the panic button. It gets harder and harder for me to watch by the day. Whereas I think, a few weeks ago, I kind of have a really long leash where, like, if they were losing, I would just sit there and watch the whole game and hope for the best. Now, if an inning like Manias happens, I turn it off. So it's not that I don't believe in them. It's that it is getting very, very frustrating. The type of team this is, because this is the type of team that's proven like they're either going to lose by a lot or they're going to win by a lot. There's no in between. It feels like there's no competitive games around it. You had that 4-3 game against the Royals, but other than that, it feels like either they're getting blown out or they're doing the blowout. So I don't know. It's very hard watching them, but of course I'm still going to watch them. Yeah, Blake. I have full confidence in Blake Snell and Joe Musgrove to be able to win their starts. Both have been pretty solid. Joe Musgrove against the Giants has been pretty solid. But Mike Clevenger against Carlos Rodon, that is a really, really hard matchup considering how trash the Padres have been against that type of pitching. Last time Rodon threw a complete game with maybe a run allowed or no runs allowed.
Just one run.
Yeah. So.
And we already brought up, who is it? Wood. Wood is great. And then
Mhm.
who's the other guy? Webb. They're throwing their 3 guys in. How many games back are they right now? I want to see. They are 7.5 game back, bro. This is the last chance for the Giants, honestly.
Yeah,
they got to do something in this year because they have to start making up games ASAP. So this is kind of like, I honestly would not be surprised if they adjusted their starting pitching rotation where like how we were talking about the Dodgers where they like skipped a day or something,
right,
to throw these 3 guys out because that makes perfect sense for where they're at right now. They're 7.5 games back from the Padres. And then the Brewers are obviously only a game and a half from the Padres, so they're even behind the Brewers too.
Yeah, and you'll never guess who's after those games we face Urias and Gonsolin.
Urias hasn't been that good against the Padres. Do we face May, bro? Don't tell me we face May.
I'm not sure, but he's really good against the Padres. But things with Urias, he ever since the All-Star break, he's been better than Blake Snell, and we
really,
yeah, he's been really, really good.
So the Padres got their work cut out for them this week. That's what you're saying.
They do. Yeah, they do. So we'll see how they do, man. I mean, they can't afford to. This is why it was so important to take games from the Guardians and the Nationals and even the Royals, because you knew this was coming. And they didn't take advantage.
Yeah, no, this is a tough one for sure. I mean, oh god, no way. So I went to look and see who the Brewers played. Bro, you know who they played next series?
Who?
Brewers. I'm sorry, the Brewers played the Pirates and then the Diamondbacks.
Oh, this is insane.
This is not good. This is a terrible spot.
This is horrible. I mean,
so I do think there's some positives though, just in terms of how the team is performing, not schedule wise. The schedule that's a rough fucking week, dude. That is a rough week. But hitting wise, Josh Bell's coming around. Yeah. Will Myers is the hottest he's been all season.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Cronenworth has been all right.
Mm-hmm.
Manny was insane today. Soto's back. That's a huge thing. Like we didn't really talk about it too much, but because like Soto missed like one day, didn't really know how much it was going to be. But when he missed the first game of the series, it was kind of like, oh, this is really sus. Like, is he going to miss a week or so? Is he going to miss a lot? It's huge that he's back. And then another guy that we were talking about the pitching that just hasn't really been good. I know everyone wanted to rip Josh Bell for a while, but dude, Brandon Drury has been bad.
Trash.
He's been really bad. Like that's not really getting talked about. I feel like that much. Campy's up. It was nice to see Campy get a couple knocks today. Except the pickoff play at second was one of the stupidest things, dude. But everyone in the Padres has done that this year. You notice that? Like the base running has been so horrific. So many guys have been getting picked off.
Mm-hmm.
That was rough because that was also it was 6-2, and then it was a 2-run shot that made it 6-4. It would have been 6-5 after that. Yep. Like 2 pitches later to Manny, and it was also Manny that was up.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a guy that hasn't really been talked about struggling, but I mean, outside of him, like I think Josh Bell heating up is absolutely massive for this team because if he can hit cleanup and play how he's played throughout his career and not be like a shell of himself like some of the other guys that have been traded for, that would be big time for this team, especially if you can get like Myers all right at the bottom. Profar really hasn't been that good, but like if Profar's all right, if like guys are just hitting okay, and you have a few guys that are hot, like Soto, Machado, and Myers and Bell. That's over. That's like half your lineup right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
and
gotta bank on it.
you have to, and I mean, you look at Brandon Drury. His struggles need to be emphasized a lot more than they're being talked about right now. I mean, he has a 203 batting average with barely over a 500 OPS in his last 15 games, and it looks like less than a 400 OPS in his last 7. That's not going to cut it. I mean, it's just you look at the lineup as a whole, right? And you see, all right, catcher's been a struggle. Catcher's been a struggle because Alfaro strikes out almost 40% of the time and he's hurt. Nola doesn't hit for power. And Campusano, everyone talks about Campusano's struggles behind the plate. And a lot of people were blaming Campusano for what happened today with Sean Manaea. Bro, Campusano's not throwing the ball down the middle at like 89 miles per hour. Campusano's
I didn't get that either.
Yeah, Campusano's asking for the ball up, and this dude's throwing it down the pipe. Campusano asked for a ball low and in the zone, and it leaked over the plate. He was just missing his spots. It is not at all on Campusano. It's just that people have this mindset where Campusano is such a bad catcher that he's not calling good pitches. He's not asking for it in the right spot. He's not framing right. Like, no, this is all on Sean. That was all on Sean Manaea's poor location. But nonetheless, catcher has definitely been a little bit of a struggle lately where you're kind of banking on Campusano.
Does this mean you believe in Campusano? I think that's what it means, right? Campusano lever?
Sounds about right. It sounds about right. But you're kind of banking on Campusano being the prospect that you were hoping for. And then you look at the rest of it, right? First base, Josh Bell's coming around. Jake, almost a 4-WAR season. Ha-Seong Kim's been magnificent in Tatis's absence. Machado's been great. Profar's in a little bit of a slump, but before that, he was pretty damn good. Grisham, he's basically Joey Gallo. And then right field, you got one of the best hitters. So it's like when you look at it from a lineup standpoint, you're like, damn, this is a good lineup. It's just that I feel like they're not coming together. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it feels like they're playing individually rather than as a team. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say.
So I was feeling a lot like that earlier. I felt way better about it this series.
Yeah.
The problem is, like I said, there's a few guys that are just, they've been horrible. Like, there's no other way to put it. They've been horrible. We talked about Sean Manaea. Dude, Sean Manaea losing every 5th day is not helping your squad. Nope. That is absolutely killing you. And then, like, when you have a guy like Clev, Clev's been in kind of like a little bit of a slump, it makes that so much worse because you're losing games when, like when you start losing multiple games when, like, you're almost losing every single, like, the 5th day every single time. And then when you cannot trust Josh Hader, and when a guy that's consistently hitting 4 or 5 is going 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts every game, and Drury, like, it's killing you. That's the thing. And before, when the Padres, like, when we, like, maybe what, like, after that national series last weekend, when we were talking about it, we were like, all right, they look like terrible because it was just no one was producing besides Machado and Soto. And that was it. Like, and then Bell finally started to at the end. And now Bell's been hitting. And now, like, more guys are seeming like they're hitting. And I feel like there has been a lot more, like, I don't know, like a better, like, overall lineup and, like, better hitting. Like, I don't really know what to call it. Like, you're saying, like, hitting as, like, a team. It's like hitting, like, I don't know, like, the flow is better throughout the lineup. Like, guys are sacrificing. I feel a little bit more confident about that. But, like, the problem is, like, there's not really that much of a margin for error now because you just blew all those easy games right before. That's the problem. Like, I don't think they're gonna play, like, in that slump. But the question now for me is, like, is it enough? Is it enough to even get you to the playoffs? And the Brewers are not good. That's the thing. The Brewers are not a good team. You play Ace just says you play the Dodgers 9 more times. Also, you mentioned Joey Gallo. I have to bring this up. I'm sorry, but my roommate's a Dodger fan, and so he's been telling me every single day.
He's been balling, bro.
Dude, and remember who said Ryan said that? Ryan said, "Yeah, bro, just get ready." That is actually
we
so
all
annoying.
Knew. We all knew.
No, yeah, that one made sense, but I don't want to talk too much about him. But let's see, like, the schedule, like, and the Brewers' schedule is being a little bit underrated. Like, people are saying, like, it really sucks. It doesn't really suck. They play, like, some legit teams, and they can't. I think they actually won the series, but they've been losing a bunch of games against the Cubs, and like really bad teams. But, like, Padres still play the Diamondbacks 7 times after this week, like in the next 2-week period. Like, you can still, like, and they've been playing the Diamondbacks well, besides Merrill Kelly, of course. But like, I don't know. This is a good question though. Do you guys regret not trading Alfaro for Contreras?
If it was Alfaro and some decent prospects for Contreras, yes. Actually, you bring that up, Devin. I actually looked at because I was very curious. I was thinking at the time, I think it was like a week ago. I was very curious because I had just watched another weird Jorge Alfaro at bat, and I was like, "How's Contreras doing right now?" Right? And honestly, obviously, it was a lot better than Alfaro, but it's not. It's not the Contreras that you would have been trading for. Granted, if he comes to San Diego, he's probably doing worse because of that whole, acclimation process, going from new team to new team. And he's not like Juan Soto, where, Juan Soto could ball out in whatever jersey he's wearing. So I don't know. I do in a sense that Contreras is a proven commodity, and he definitely brings a lot of maybe a lot of protection to some other guys, and the strikeout numbers aren't there, and maybe he's more disciplined at the plate. But yeah, I'm not sure. You're definitely getting a lot of struggles right now at the plate from the catchers. So I don't know.
Okay. Hypothetical. Let's go back to this Josh Hader trade.
Okay.
Obviously everyone's looking at the Josh Hader trade going, yeah, we don't want these guys back. Right? Like
Yeah.
we don't want to or we want them back. We don't want right now you don't feel like you want Josh Hader.
Josh Hader, right.
I'm trying to look at who the trade was. I know it was Denelson Lamet. I'm trying to find where it was.
Esteury Ruiz
and Robert Gasser. And Rogers.
Yes.
Would you take Esteury Ruiz and Robert Gasser, add them to Alfaro, and move them for Contreras?
Esteury Ruiz, Robert. Yeah.
That would have been way better hindsight. I mean, of course, hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight, yeah, exactly.
But like that was something that was discussed. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, and if you look at it, what's the difference in wins? That could be like 7 wins, bro.
Yeah.
Like legit, that could be like 7 wins.
Completely.
And like, imagine if Contreras, okay, like right when they got here, like we had talked about how a lot of guys slump. If you add Contreras, you probably don't add Drury.
That's true.
Like, and I'm also like, keep in mind, like I was really against adding Contreras. I want to put that out there. Like I was wrong. Like that's how I feel right now. But I feel like looking back, it's like, damn, that would have been so much better for the outcome of this season. But oh yeah, I don't know. That's the thing that's so annoying right now is I think that the team is playing a lot better, and they weren't a couple weeks ago. So it's like, okay, you're going through like this is a time where you got to go make the playoffs, and it's like, yeah, but you've just screwed up the last 2 weeks, and now there's like 3 guys that are just completely blowing it for you. So I haven't like lost faith. I don't think like I lost faith that they're gonna make the playoffs. I still think they are, but they're not taking over where it's not becoming like a question that we're asking. And that's what we should have seen. And that's what we wanted to see after the Juan Soto trade, where it's like, okay, Soto's here, Bell's here, boom, boom, boom. They just rip off all these wins. And right now, hopefully, we'd have like an 8-game lead over the Brewers, not a game and a half. And that's why it's like, okay, you've fallen from first off, you've fallen from the 4th seed to the 5th seed after like early on in the season. And now you went from the 5th seed to the 6th seed, and now you're barely up in the 6th seed. So it's like you are not going in the right direction at all.
Completely.
What do you think about this question from actually, go ahead about that, and then we'll get into this question from Matthew.
Oh, man. I mean, yeah, I don't want to get too much. I do want to answer that. That is a really good question. But in terms of what the Padres are right now, I think we can easily say everyone knows their destiny. They controlled their destiny. They controlled it in terms of this whole 12-game stretch against, Nationals, Royals, Indians, or oh my God, I'm sorry, Guardians, and the Giants. You controlled your destiny, and so far they've blown it. So I don't know how to feel. I mean, I like you, Matt. I do believe they still will make the playoffs. I wanted them to make it as the 4th or the 5th seed. I do want to see them play at home. But right now, that's not looking very likely. It looks like you are going to have to settle with playing on the road. So I don't know. It's just that it feels so weird right now because when the hitting is on, the pitching's not on. When everything else is on, something's wrong with the defense. When you're winning a game, the closer comes in and blows it. This team is not. They're not in sync right now. They're not playing good collective team baseball. It's very one-sided, where only one side of the ball is going at one time. Whereas earlier in the season, yeah, you weren't hitting very well, but you had a really good recipe. Pitching and defense with great timely hitting was winning you so many ball games to a point where you were 20 games above 500 at one point, 20 plus games, and at one point like 2 or 3 games up in the NL West. And now you've lost that. You lost that timely hitting aspect where now recently you've been one of the worst teams with runners in scoring position, and your starters are not doing what your starters were doing earlier in the season. Granted, it's only Mania and Clevenger hasn't been as good. Musgrove's had his bad starts, but it's just not what they were at one point. So it is a very different. It feels like a very different team. Not only because there are new faces, but these new faces were supposed to bring better results with runners in scoring position, more power, and I feel like they've probably brought a little more power. But where you've been lacking significantly is that timely hitting. Timely hitting wins ball games. Good pitching wins ball games. They got the defense, but they've just they haven't come through with runners in scoring position, and that's been the biggest drawback as of late.
So I got a quick question for you just about that, because I obviously didn't really play that much, but you've had more, time playing baseball, actually hitting a lineup and having like the feel and the energy and like all of that kind of part of the game. Do you think a lot of that can just be like knowing your teammates? Like in terms of like, if you get on base and like having the confidence in like the guy kind of coming up to bring you in, like, do you think that kind of like there's like a part of the game where it's like you got to have faith in your own guys in a way? Because I feel like a lot of times, like, we see the Padres strike out all the time when they just need to get guys over. And like, that's the part that's really burned them with guys in scoring position. Like, do you think that there's something to that? Or do you think that's kind of like not a thing?
Team confidence is everything, dude. Team confidence is everything. When you're winning ball games and you got confidence in everyone in front of you and everyone in back of you, a lot of that team chemistry is essentially what I'm trying to say. That changes everything. You win so many ball games just based off confidence in your lineup, in the guys around you. And I feel like a lot of these guys are having very individualistic at bats and approaches at the plate, where they're trying to. I feel like some of them are just trying to play hero ball, and they don't really need to do that. Being able to get guys on and get guys over is basically what their winning recipe was earlier in the season. Playing very unselfish baseball is what they were doing earlier in the season, knowing that they're going to have to pick up the slack for essentially knowing they didn't have the power. And losing Tatis, they knew they were going to have to pick up the slack. And it really doesn't feel like they're playing team baseball right now, playing, like, team baseball. So I think what you're bringing up is one of the biggest things in all of baseball in terms of a team sport, just because I think when I was playing and my teams would go on runs, it was just confidence in everybody, confidence knowing like we could win this game, and no matter how many runs down we were, like, just being able to do your job and put up competitive at bats, put up good at bats, get deep into the pitch count, whatever it is. I think that was one of the biggest things to emphasize in terms of your at bat. And I feel like the Padres haven't been doing that lately.
Yeah, no, I figured it would be cool to hear your insight on that, just because, you kind of have the feel of like, and we've talked about like how like hitting in a different spot in the lineup a lot last year when we were talking about Tingler's lineups, where you bring up like, dude, it feels so much different. Like if I'm hitting in the 3-hole and then I'm hitting leadoff, like it's just a different feel to it all.
Very,
so,
very.
And it's so weird because baseball is like a sport, like it's one that you don't see it as much because it's essentially the pitcher versus the hitter, like to start every play. Where in football, it's like, oh yeah, of course you need team chemistry. Like, of course a quarterback has to know when to throw to a wide receiver. Like in basketball, like, yeah, of course, like you have to know when to get into help defense. Like it's pretty obvious. But in baseball, it's not as obvious, but it still does really impact the game, which is it's really interesting. But I wanted to get to this question by Matthew. So he said, how good do you think Morejon is going to be? I'd rather have him start than Mania. So I love Morejon. I think Morejon's going to be a sweet player. However, I don't know, and maybe down the road he'll be able to, but at this point, I don't think he's a guy that can get really stretched out. Like, when he's been stretched out in the past, he starts a few times, and then he gets hurt. He gets, like, shoulder inflammation, whatever it is, and he has not been able to get past, like, I forgot how many innings it is, but, like, he can't pitch that much. Maybe this is just because he's younger and he'll develop into a starter as time goes, but I think right now you're kind of looking at him to being potentially turning into like an elite setup man, elite closer, like something like that, because he has the stuff to do it. And he can also go out and he can go pitch 2 innings or even 3 innings sometimes. So I think he's a really versatile bullpen piece right now, but I wouldn't say that he's going to be a starter this year or next year. Maybe in a couple years if they want to retry kind of having him stretch out, but it just hasn't worked where he hasn't been able to be healthy. So I think it's really dependent on that.
Yeah, I really like your idea, Matthew, just because we've seen glimpses of, in 2020, a very young Adrian Morejon starting games. And honestly, he was fantastic. That's kind of been the theme with the Padres, young pitchers coming up, looking very good throughout their first couple of starts. But I felt like it was a little different with Adrian Morejon just because for Mackenzie Gore, he looked fantastic, but he was throwing 60, 70% fastball, and his stuff wasn't the best. So you knew eventually it was going to take a little bit of a downturn. Ryan Weathers, same thing. But with Adrian Morejon, he had pretty damn close to 100 miles per hour in velocity, had a great knuckle change, had great stuff, his location was fantastic. So in that sense, I think Adrian Morejon is a little different than the rest. But injuries is always going to be a concern for him, and you always want him to be in some sort of role, whether it be out of the bullpen or as a starter. So I was actually thinking about this today, maybe in a sense, because I want Nick Martinez to start, but it's also worth remembering that Nick Martinez hasn't started a game in a very long time. He hasn't been stretched out in a very long time. So maybe at most you want him pitching 3 or 4 innings at a time, right? And then you want Adrian Morejon pitching maybe 2 or 3 if you want to really, really push him. But I think that would be a much better recipe for success right now than having Sean Manaea out there. Granted, Bob Melvin is not going to sit Sean Manaea. They're not going to completely take him out of the loop. Maybe skip a start and then go from there. But I think in terms of what works best for the Padres right now, it's going with some of your bullpen guys, long reliever guys that have proven they can do it. And I think that is going to yield you better results, especially against a team like the Dodgers. They've already roughed them up twice, man. Don't let them do it again. I think that is really the recipe for success over having what has been on the mound as of late. So stretching Morejon out is tough just because he hasn't done it in a while. Coming off surgery, he's looked good, but of course, granted, he's going to have those rough patches. So as a starter, I don't think it'll happen, but maybe as a 2-3 inning guy, could very realistically happen this year. Okay, that's William Bradford DeGrom.
Dude, no, that was hilarious today. I absolutely love when position players come onto the mound.
Hilarious.
But yeah, I don't know. Any other questions from you guys? I think we'll probably wrap it up here kind of shortly, but I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to think of like other people to bring up. I think, maybe Josh Bell. Josh Bell has been really good lately.
1,000 OPS over the last 7 games. Just look right now.
I've been really happy to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Like Cronenworth has been like kind of same.
Yeah,
I feel like there's not really anything to talk about him.
No.
What do you think? Okay, this is a cool one. This is a cool one. What do you think about pinch hitting players late in the game? Yesterday, Grisham, Crone. Today, Kim, Rosario. No hits from any. I don't really like it, dude. I'll be honest. I feel like it kind of like gets guys out of their rhythm. Also, there's some times where like players hit a lot better later in the games. Cronenworth, for instance, after he sees a few at bats, like he usually like occasionally he'll start out the game with like a big hit, like a home run or something, but he usually gets out his first time up almost every single game. Kim is the same way. Kim gets a bunch of hits late in the game. Like a lot of these guys hit like in certain spots, and I think that playing a full game of baseball, going up and hitting 4 times, I think there's a lot more benefits of coming up in your 4th at bat. I would love to see what the stats are on this. This is like a super random idea that I just thought of, but I would love to see the stats on what are guys' numbers in their 3rd or 4th time up in a game compared to their first time, because I think that would vary a lot. One, depending on player, but I also think just generally guys are probably going to have better numbers later on in games, just coming up to the plate and being at, seeing more pitches, even if it's a different pitcher, not necessarily like 3rd time through the lineup, because I know that's a huge one, obviously. But just like hitting later in games, I do feel like guys probably hit better in their 4th at bat than their first, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan.
I completely see what you're saying. I think in terms of me playing, the first at bat was always kind of the hardest just because you're facing a pitcher that maybe you haven't seen too much. You haven't seen their stuff. So I think that is always the hardest. But come 2nd and 3rd at bat, I think I can speak for anyone that has ever played, even some of these guys. Second or third at bats normally when you feel comfortable. That is when you're at your most comfortable. It also depends on if the same pitcher that you face in your first at bat is still up there. That is actually probably the biggest factor, because everyone knows, normally it's the second or third time around, the batting average against the pitcher starts going up. The third time normally being the highest. That was I believe Dinelson Lamet coming into 2020. He first time around very good, second time around still pretty damn good, third time around horrific. So that is almost the case with every pitcher. So in terms of what you're saying, yeah, you're absolutely right, being able to get into the rhythm, but it all depends on if that same pitcher is in the game, because you can do whatever scouting report you want, stuff like that. But facing a brand new pitcher is very, very hard, considering you already saw the stuff from the other pitcher. Now you got to adapt to something else. So in terms of this question itself, I think in terms of it, baseball is a very weird sport where you look at a decision, an in-game decision, and it could be, whatever you think of it. Oh, this is a good idea. I like it, right? But then it gets roughed up, and then it turns into a very bad idea. It's a very hindsight kind of sport where for the Padres, yes, this might not be working right now, but if you look at that Giants lineup from last year, this is essentially what won them ball games, being able to do matchups, being able to pinch hit guys at the right time and go by the matchups, whereas that worked for them and that really isn't working for this Padres team. So that's a very tough question. It's a very I think it's a very hindsight kind of thing. Whereas we're looking at it, if even one or two of these guys get a hit, it's, oh man, I love this. Let's keep playing the matchups, right? So it's very hard to gauge, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And also iOS, he says there's actually a Stafford Baseball reference, and then he also brought up Cronenworth.
Fantastic.
Exactly what I was thinking, bro. Yeah, 664 OPS first time up, second time 7, and this is exactly what you were saying too, Isaac. The second to third time up is like the best kind of spot.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, no, I think that's a good question though. I think it's interesting to see that, because you bring up the Giants, and I think that's a perfect example of it helping a team where they're like, this guy either hits better against this pitcher specifically, or he is a platoon player.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year you saw early on when they, oh my God, who was it? They have a guy, Jock Peterson. Jock can't hit lefties.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Bro, he's in the lineup against lefties still. And you want to know his numbers against lefties? Awful. Absolutely horrible. And he started out the year super hot. He was an all-star, and now his numbers have fallen off quite a bit. And I wonder if they I don't know. I haven't been too locked into the Giants, but I wonder if they kind of started to, maybe they were platooning him a little bit more early on in the season, and they were like, hey, this guy's been so hot. Let's get him out here and let's have him hit left once in a while. I feel like you get kind of a little bit too excited sometimes, where it's like, we know who this guy is. He hits in these spots. So I think matchup is definitely a thing to bring in, but also it's interesting when you bring in another variable, and, well, what's the guy's, how does he adjust throughout the game? When does he hit the best? Does he hit best in late game? So I think that's ultimately like you're saying, it's hindsight, but it's also there's a lot of different factors to look at, which might make you think this is a good idea or this is a bad idea. And then occasionally you'll have in every sport, you'll have either a pitcher come in or whoever come in, or a guy come up to bat. And you're like, why in the world are they doing this? And then everyone's thinking it. And it even happens in MLB managing. And I have to say, I haven't seen too much of that from Bob Melvin this year. There's been a couple times, but I felt like in past, I feel like Andy Green, Chase Tingler, I was kind of losing it, almost nightly, it felt like sometimes. Maybe that's just because the Padres are losing more too. That's probably part of it as well. But it's definitely something that it's hard to kind of determine, okay, what's the right move here? Because there's a lot of different things you can look at, a lot of different numbers. And when it's a fringe decision, it's tough to decide. But I don't know, Isaac, anything else you want to bring up before we bounce?
Nah, I think that's it.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's probably going to do it for tonight. We will be posting something probably on Josh Hader tomorrow. And then I think we're going to have probably a Friar Talk Tuesday on Tuesday, and then Wednesday. We got to see if Hum Baby wants to hop back on, because that was fun last time when we brought him on. So hopefully we'll see if we can do something with him again for the Giants series, because it's a 3-game series, then Thursday's off day, right?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll do that, and then we'll hopefully get a couple of episodes out later on in the week. But I think that's probably going to do it for tonight. So thank you guys for hopping on, and we'll talk to you guys in the next couple of days. See you guys.